All right. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We have
Asha.
Farah.
with us today. We're continuing our women's study. Um, the study is just about women. Boys can listen in as well if you'd like. But today we are going to be talking about Queen Vashti and a little bit about Esther as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we're going to be talking mainly about Queen Vashti. So, for those that don't know, Queen Vashti was basically the queen before Esther was. So Esther, I'm going to say Esther was basically like Vashti 2.0. So Vashti was beautiful, she was smart, she was bold, and she was just like, she was very queenly, I would say. And so at that time, right, I feel like the queens were just there to be queens, right? Like the trophy wife kind of vibes. And so basically, they were whatever the king wanted them to do, they had to do. Um, I'm not that type of person, so that's why I wasn't around there. I don't think I could have lasted there. But part of Vashi's story was that, or Farah, do you want to take it?
Sure.
Do you want to take it away, Farah?
Sure. Vashti.
Give it up for Farah.
So, in the story, Vashti was she was called to dance for the king and his peoples.
I guess like whoever he was banqueting with or entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. So, she refused because she can. Well, not that she can, but she wanted to, and I would too, because I'm not an object, right?
I was about to say, can you imagine just being called out to dance for your husband and his friends? That's so crazy to me.
Like, who do you think I am? First of all,
A jester, a court jester.
Exactly, and he demanded, so which is really crazy.
Really crazy.
Really, really crazy. So his people went to went to get her. She refused, and they said, well, they told the king that she refused, and he asked them what should he do about it, right? And they said that exactly that he should. That he should off her.
Get rid of her.
Yeah.
Cause,
permanently.
Yeah, because in that time period, I guess, or in their perspective, it's like, you're not listening to me, so I'm just going to remove you from the situation altogether.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he could have done anything else but kill her. Like, oh sorry. But her, it was a little bit much. Okay, so
right?
he did all of that. I mean, they told him that he should do such thing, and they did.
They got rid of her. Isn't that so crazy? One thing about me, I'm going to say no. Right? And if my saying no leads to that,
so be it. No,
We're gonna say no again.
You say never gonna say no again?
We're gonna say no
Absolutely.
again.
Absolutely. Huh.
That part there where he said, "What should I do?" It's kind of like
you don't know what to do.
You said it like what?
Like be a man if you want to be a man.
I was about to
Okay,
say,
you don't have your own
kicking
mind.
his feet up, like
Right.
what should I do? The way that you said that.
You don't have your own mind to say what you
Like,
should
first of all,
do.
you're the king.
Exactly.
What do you mean? What should I do?
It's your wife, and if you really wanted her, hello.
But also, that just shows like how disposable I feel like a lot of women were to men. Which is also, we are the bringers of life. In some regards. Like, we physically are the bringers of life. And you're just gonna, because I didn't want to dance in front of your little, am I a monkey? Are you gonna play your music and I'm gonna clap my little thing? No. I'm sorry, that's just so disrespectful to me.
Okay. I have one question for you.
I also have a question for you.
Mhm.
Can you hold your mic in front of your mouth?
Oh, it's not in front of my mouth. Okay, sorry. How do you expect Esther to be treated after Queen Vashti?
Ooh. I would anticipate more of the same, I think, because I'm like, if she said no, Vashti said no, and he got rid of her, then I would assume that he's looking for another like subservient woman to just come in and do as he says, or that's like not gonna have a voice or a mind of her own to like say no like Vashti did.
Asha?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. How do you accept? I mean, how do you expect Esther to be treated after Queen Vashti?
Yeah, I agree with Ariel. Like more of the same. He wanted, just someone who, unlike Vashti, he expected like Esther to just be like, yeah, if he did bring her out in front of the friends, he'd be like, yeah, if I wanted you to dance, you would just dance. That's what he wanted,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think, well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So
Um, do you guys think that the relationship between King Xerxes and Vashti are, I mean, is it admirable?
I feel like some people would say that it was admirable because there are a lot of people that are just like, I'm the man of the house. You're gonna do as I say. Blech. um, but so some people would say that like her being subservient to him would be the admirable way to go and stuff. But I think that
Mhm.
just erases any personality that she has, right? It shows that you only married her because you thought she was beautiful, not because you saw her as a person. So I would say no. I think her standing up was admirable of herself.
Mhm.
But as the relationship as a whole, if you're gonna get rid of me because I said no to you, you shouldn't have married me in the first place.
That's right. Especially me. So, Ariel, would you like to read Ephesians 5:28-33? It,
Yes.
um,
No, go ahead.
yeah.
I have it in NIV, and so it says, "In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband."
All right. So, once again, this shows how, well, not once again. This shows that husbands should treat their wives with respect and that we're not objects.
Period.
I think two things like stood out to me when you read the verse. The first one being, where am I? I literally just had
Do
it. Um,
you want to look at it?
oh, he who loves his wife loves himself. Clearly, very clearly, he did
He
not
doesn't
love
love
himself.
Mm.
And then the second part being, can I say that again? Um, and the wife must respect her husband, which, if we look back at the story, she did respect her husband because she didn't dance in front of his friends, shows modesty.
Mm.
So yeah.
See, I don't know if I'll be able to respect you if you were treating me such way.
I can see both ways, both perspectives. I definitely, yeah, I didn't. Wow. Let's petition to have Asha back as a speaker on the podcast because I didn't like in her saying no. I didn't look at it as a sign of modesty as well, but it definitely was because how are you having me flaunt myself in front of your friends? Disgusting.
Exactly.
But yeah, clearly he didn't love himself because he was asking her to do all these things that he knew that he would never want to do. But also, like, to ask after she says no, and she doesn't cause a big scene about it. She doesn't, like, go out and, like, yell at him or whatever. She tells the servants to go back and tell him no, right? And then after that, he's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do you, sir, have a mind of your own?
No.
Do you respect your own position that you are currently in? I'm going to go ahead and agree and say no because, first of all, I don't want to say like control your wife because that can get misconstrued a lot of ways, but like talk to your wife, right? Figure out what's happening before you just go on and be like, "Should I you think I should get rid of her?" I'm sorry.
Another thing to add with that is, you know, he saw her more of just like a pretty face, a trophy that he can show off to his people so they can be envious of him.
Yeah,
Um, so he's like seeking validation from
from
these
them.
people, and he was extra hurt when she said, "No, I'm not going to come out and dance for your friends here," um, because you know, like he wants them to like validate her. He wants them to think like not validate her. He wants to validate himself,
Mhm.
you know, with his friends, and he wants them to think that he's in control and he has like the most perfect life.
Yeah.
So he was extra hurt.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I think it definitely hurt him in his pride a little bit because
Mhm.
especially because it was in front of his friends.
Right.
Like it's not like it's just some randoms and I'm just like I have a hot wife. Look at her, but it's that, and it goes back to the lack of respect and love for himself because he should already feel confident in the fact that he has this wife, right? But the fact that he constantly is seeking out that validation of like, oh, my wife is going to perform for you and she's the best one out of all your wives or whatever, and the fact that she said no, it's like
How dare you?
to hit, yeah.
um, what about her being noble?
I think her saying no was a sign of her being noble, especially like Asha said, like it was a sign of her being modest, which was also very like highly regarded in those time periods and still now. Um, but her saying that like I'm not going to come out and perform for your friends because you ask me to is a sign of nobility. I think it's a sign of like I have respect for myself,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to come down to your level because you seem to be lacking in that area.
You okay there, Ariel?
Me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you sound a little bit hurt, or a little bit,
I'm not hurt,
emotional.
but I'm an emotional person. But no, but I don't like when women are just treated like they're just a plaything to have and to show off. Like we're more than that.
Mhm.
Especially if like I'm a queen, I'm a person that is of status and you clearly picked me for a specific reason. Um so I'm going to act as such.
Nice. All right. So Xerxes' view of marriage was way different than the Bible because he saw his wife as his own possession and thought he could treat her anyway and as an object. And like I said before in Ephesians 5:28 to 33, we are God's daughters, which means we should be treated as such and with respect. And that's not what Xerxes did. And Vashti was God's daughter, and and not Xerxes. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Um, exactly. So Vashti was definitely God's daughter, whether she sinned or not, like all of us. And yeah, um, yeah, his view of marriage was not biblical,
Oh,
basically.
definitely. It definitely wasn't biblical. I think it was definitely it was she's a pretty girl, I want to have her, and now she gets to do whatever I say because I've chosen to marry her and I'm the king. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Okay, let's get into Esther.
Nice.
How is Esther's relationship with Xerxes? So, well, let's start off with who's Esther. Queen Esther, well, becomes Queen Esther. She is selected to become queen because she was beautiful, just like Vashti.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit. So
Mhm.
after Vashti said no and the king was advised to get rid of her, they was it a decree or like some they had put out a notice saying that like all eligible women need to become need to come for like this recruitment process, basically.
Yeah, audition.
Yeah, audition, right? So they underwent 6 months of like beauty treatments and like all these different things and fashion, basically like pageantry.
Mhm.
Um, and then at the end of that, Esther was selected to be the queen.
So, one of my questions for you is, how do the eunuchs, the women of the, I mean, the other women, and eventually the king respond to Esther's position as queen? Whether she likes it or not, Esther is drafted into an unusual new community that requires a particularly strange form of education. How do the eunuchs, the other women, and eventually the king respond to her?
I think in the preparation, I guess, to be presented to the king, um, Esther's level of humility works in her favor, but I think also the fact that she was trained up in a certain way, like with Mordecai, also works in her favor. Because I feel like a lot of women aren't necessarily like educated in this time period, especially to the extent that she probably was with Mordecai, because if I'm remembering correctly, I believe he was a teacher, right? Was he a teacher? I don't know. Okay, I don't know, but he basically he brought Esther up, and he hold on, now I need to look it up. Was Mordecai a teacher? Yes, he was. He taught children. He was a Torah scholar. He was like a Bible school teacher for the children. So I think having his background and also bringing up Esther in a certain way, she would have an advantage in that she was trained in the Torah and like religious things, but also in just how to carry herself. And aside from being able to do domestic things or just be a lady, I think that definitely gives her an edge up.
Asha, you have anything?
I agree.
Okay.
So, as my grandmother loves to say, or loved to say, she no longer says because she no longer is, but
Oh gosh.
they, they can take many things, but they cannot take your education.
That's right.
So, get it while you can.
I heard that a lot of
And you
times
can be
before.
educated in many ways. It does not necessarily mean a formal scholarly education.
Mhm. So, Esther wasn't really in love with Xerxes, but he was really in love with her because of how beautiful she was. And I wouldn't say love, but lust.
He was definitely like infatuated with her. I think
Yeah.
he like saw that she was so beautiful, and that was it for him.
Hmm. But since Esther needed Xerxes to work in her favor, she did use him because she had power, right?
I wouldn't. Okay, so we're jumping the story.
Yeah,
Okay, so I wouldn't
just a little
necessarily
bit.
she used him, but I would say she was put in this position and was therefore given authorities,
Hmm.
and I think she used that to her advantage. Not necessarily that she like used him, because I feel like there's that negative connotation that comes with like when you say that you use someone. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Um, but I wouldn't say it in that way per se.
Um,
But yeah, she definitely was. I don't know if she. I wouldn't. I don't think she probably was in love with him, like romantically, like in a relationship with him at all.
I mean, we've been calling Esther, uh, what 2.0?
Yeah. Oh, Vashti
um,
2.0.
yeah. Um, he saw her. He said, "I didn't get it right with the first time, so let me try again the second time,
Mm.
and maybe learn something from the first time. Come correct this time with her."
mm, um, do you guys? Well, I'm sure we all believe that God favored her, right?
Oh, for sure. Esther.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because she did get a lot from Xerxes. And in which way? I mean, Vashti most likely wouldn't have gotten because
I don't know if the same situations would have arose had Esther not been um, put in the position she was, because I think I don't know if this was like how things are done or like whatever, but after she became queen, then Haman was promoted. So I don't know if he would have still been promoted had she not been queen. You know? I don't know.
hmm. Okay. Um so Esther sacrificed her life to be with the king even though she wasn't in love with him, right?
Hmm.
And I would say I commend her for that because you're basically for your people. But that's also jumping the gun. So I'm not talking about that right now.
Stay tuned for next week.
Exactly. So, how do you guys think Esther felt after becoming queen, knowing that she had to fill big shoes of Vashti?
Well, I think that, like she definitely felt pressured to be in that role, because, you know, to be queen, first of all, not an easy task.
Especially like 6 months of preparation just to be like selected.
Right. And then to know, well, she's here. There was another queen before her, and she knows what happened to the queen. Um, was it public knowledge why?
I would think to an extent.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was at the banquet that she said no.
We don't know
and
who was at the banquet though.
Maybe,
You know what I mean?
word travels fast.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
um, but yeah, if I could put myself into her shoes, and I was thinking, okay, you're selected as the next queen, but here's what happened to the queen prior. Like, I would be thinking, I don't know if I want to do this, because if he asked me to dance in front of his friends, I'm gonna be gone too. You know, so I could see her being very fearful.
Yeah. I think it's definitely one of those positions where it's like she didn't really have a choice, right? Which also makes me think maybe Vashti didn't have a choice either in being selected to be the wife. But like knowing that she said no and she was offed for it, it definitely gives you that mindset of like, clearly I can't speak out. Clearly I have to do whatever this man says, otherwise my life is gone. It's taken from me. And that definitely would put a lot of pressure on someone, I think. Regardless of how strong of a person you are, I think that will always be lingering in the back of your mind. Because what's that? They say that like a man or a woman will change for the right person, right? Um, so maybe I could be that person, but I'm not going to know until I do. And then if I do stand out and I'm not it, then what happens? It's ooh scary.
Okay. I have one last question for you guys. So Vashti, Esther, and Mordecai's lives have been upended, and we haven't seen any mention of God in the story. Has God forgotten them?
No.
And because I didn't finish my question.
Oh, she paused, right? Okay. Okay.
What do you what do you guys do when God seems to be absent in your own life?
Well, those are two very different questions, Farah. But no, I don't think God has forgotten about them, right? I also, although he hasn't been explicitly mentioned in this story, like God says this or God does this, I don't think he was necessarily absent from the story because they reference their faith, right? Um, and even so, like when Mordecai tells her that she's put in this position for such a time as this, right? Who has put her in that position? She didn't put herself in this position, right? God has placed her here. And especially being that Mordecai was a Torah teacher, I don't think that God has ever completely absent from the things that he deals with, or the advice that he's giving to Esther in these times.
What do you do when God seems to be absent in your own life?
Spiral.
Yikes.
No, it depends on the situation, I think. You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I'm just speaking for me, a lot of times I feel like I'm like, God, where are you? And I just like feel like he's not present. But you know, there are so many things that I could do to connect with God, and like I can read my word, I can worship, I can pray, and like, you know, I might not hear from him. I might not get immediate answers like every time. It, like as you said, it depends on the situation. But like he's never absent. We know that like in our faith. Like he's always there. If he even if he's silent, he's still working behind the scenes for our good. Um and maybe his absence is him asking us to be faithful and to trust him more and to maybe pray, because if he's absent, maybe he's calling you closer to him. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. I think that he's not necessarily, he's never absent from us, but we may feel far from him, I think. And I think that's the difference, because God never really leaves you alone, but if you don't draw near to him, he won't necessarily,
Won't draw near to you.
I don't want to say he won't draw near to you, because God also puts people in your in your life, like, you know, to help you draw near to him sometimes. But I think it's definitely, we have to take that first step towards him, and then he will kind of put things in place for you. And just because, and him setting things into motion doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna, like you said, you're not gonna see it right away. Sometimes you have to like work on a lot of back end things before you see anything up front, right? So like we're rehearsing for Easter. We have to put in months of rehearsal before you can see that final production on the stage. It's not like we don't just come together and be like, "Hey, this is the Easter play," right? There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on, that like it's where it's like, which is, hello. There's a lot of things that have to happen in order for me to see a product. And so God's not necessarily absent, but I may not physically see him or feel him in this moment, and that's different. But yeah, I don't think he's absent in this story neither. Because it was their faith in God that helped ground them and helped give Esther the boost that she needed to go talk to the king.
Thank you very much for your answers. Gotta be polite. All right. So I have nothing else for you. But the moral of the story, be like Esther,
What about Vashti?
I guess.
put some respect on her name
Yo,
right
for
now.
real.
But more like Esther.
Vashti said no, so Esther could step in.
All right, you know
Right?
what? Be like Vashti and Esther.
How about you be like them both?
Yeah, like I just said, like Vashti and Esther. Girl, pay attention.
Ooh, I thought you was being polite, Farah.
Not anymore. Okay, this is.
I'm glad that y'all finally see how Farah talks to us.
Only sometimes.
This is only a snippet.
No,
this
no,
is
no,
not
don't
even
say
the
that.
worst of it.
What?
We're getting. You can't see this, but other people are in
Evie
agreement
is
with.
agreeing.
Yeah.
Just put in a clip of you nodding. Yeah, do that.
What? That's how you guys feel about me? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Crazy.
Farah, I think you should be a little bit more like Miriam, actually.
And Kevin is agreeing. Like, what is this?
Right.
All
That's
right. Yes. Be
That's
like
all.
Esther and Vashti. Have a good whatever it is.
Be like
by
Miriam
you.
as well, I think.
And Tamar.
To an extent.
Yeah.
To an extent. Bye.